There we go. All right, there we go. And then also transcripts. There we go. Okay, so we are going to go ahead and start. Thank you so much, everybody, for coming in to the South Carolina State Library's webinar. It is Air and Space Month, so we are very excited to have a presentation that I've put together called South Carolina in the Stars. It is about discovering the material that we have at South Carolina State Library that has to deal with the air and space industries and the people from South Carolina who have helped those industries and build them up to what they are. So, first of all, a little housekeeping. If you have any questions, please put them in the chat. I'm the only person doing any sort of modding of this webinar, and so if you have any questions, I will have to take those at the end just because I will be going through my presentation first. However, I'm happy to do that. Drop the messages when you think of them, or raise your hand at the end. Either way works great. So I will go ahead and start the presentation. We are going to share the screen. All right, okay. So we've got Discover the State Libraries, SC in the Stars. That's us. My name is Melanie Griffin. I am a public services librarian at the South Carolina State Library. If you've ever been here, you have more than likely seen me at the desk if you've been here the last couple of few years. That's my job, and it's a very fun part of it. So I'm now going to delve a little bit into what the State Library actually is. We are the central quasi-government library for South Carolina. I say quasi because we support a lot of the state government information, but we are our own entity, and so we also support all the state's other libraries, the county libraries and the regional libraries that are considered the public libraries of our state. We support them. Our collection specifically focuses on South Carolina. That's not all we have, but that is our main focus. We also include documents from the state government and other state agencies. And we also have federal documents. We are not a full federal depository, but we are a federal depository, which means we get a certain number of federal documents, and we have folks who can give you way more detail about that than I. You don't need to know that right this second. Just know we do also get some federal documents from the federal government. And then we also have public access to research help and materials. And that is my job, and that is why we are here today. So, I'm going to go on to our presentation. There we go. So, South Carolina's role in space exploration. I knew there were a little details that connected us here and there. I didn't know how extensive it was. So this was a really fun thing to research and put together. And so my presentation has 3 different sections, roughly. First, we're going to look at astronauts from South Carolina. We're going to look at their biographies, memoirs, and autobiographies, and also news articles and other contemporary here means within their time period coverage. And then we also have information about astronomy in South Carolina in general. We have, of course, a national park within South Carolina, and we have state parks and other sort of natural areas that are available for stargazing or for studying like that. And we also have, of course, a lot of educational institutions around here. And we had an eclipse in 2017 that was awesome if you were able to be here and view that. So we have a lot of material about that. And then we also just have general educational material from state agencies. And then we also go beyond South Carolina. We do have, like I said, some federal documents, and we have a lot from NASA. And we have a lot of links to digital reports as well. We've also got books in our general collection on cosmology and other related sciences. We don't have a huge general science section, but we do have some very choice, very curated material on that, and we'll talk about that. And then my favorite part is we have an inclusive services area, and we have Braille and Wonderbook materials, and we have a couple really good inclusive books and other material about constellations and the stars and the Earth in general. So that's very well represented within our inclusive services material, which I think is pretty awesome. Okay, so first up, we are going to talk about Charles Moss Duke Jr. He is the first South Carolinian who was a part of NASA and who was a part of their Apollo missions, which were obviously very important. The Apollo 11 was the one that got everything started, of course, and he was involved in NASA from the very sort of beginning of those Apollo missions, as you can see. He went to high school in Lancaster, and then he graduated from the U.S. Naval Academy and received honorary degrees from USC and Francis Marion University during his career. So he's a very decorated, highly educated man, as you need to be to go to the moon and beyond. He was also big in the Air Force. He was one of 19 fighter pilots chosen by NASA to become the first astronauts for the Apollo missions in 1966. So if you didn't know, NASA chose their first astronauts from Air Force and naval pilots because those are the guys that were the best at flying something. And since nobody had any, I don't want to say nobody had any standards for astronauts yet, these guys kind of set the bar for that, and they set it very high. They were all kinds of prepared for a lot of things, and so Charles Moss Duke Jr. He journeyed to the moon on the Apollo 16 mission, and he was also backup crew for Apollo 17. So he has been to the moon, and he was also backup crew for a number of other Apollo missions. So, like I said, he was there from that first start for us getting to the moon, which is very fascinating. He spent a total of 265 hours in spaceflight and over 21 hours in work outside space vehicles. So he has put in the hours. He retired from NASA in 1975 and went into private business. So an astronaut is a very difficult job, and they don't let you do it for, overly long. So he got to retire from that pretty early, and then he went into his own business. And he is a South Carolina Hall of Fame member. And we also have a lot of material from him, both from our South Carolina Hall of Fame material, which includes educational TV clips and sections on that. And he's also included in a lot of our famous people, important people from South Carolina encyclopedias. And then he has written a couple books. His most thorough one about his experience in NASA is called Moonwalker, and he wrote it with his wife, so Charlie and Dottie Duke. A very cute name for a very adorable couple who write a really great memoir about him being an astronaut. And I like the tagline, the true story of an astronaut who found that the moon wasn't enough to satisfy his appetite for success. So he's got big ambitions, and Charles Moss Duke Jr., like I said, he's very decorated, and he's the first South Carolinian to go into space. So these pictures are actually from the State Museum. We try to partner with other state agencies whenever we can, and our our employees at the State Library were able to enjoy the State Museum a couple months ago, and so I grabbed these pictures from their exhibit on South Carolinians in Space, which is really cool. You should go see it if you have a chance. I'm pretty sure it's permanent. It's relatively new, but it's great if you haven't seen it. This is Charles Moss Duke Jr.'s flight suit, a space suit, and this is the moon rover that he rode in those hours that he was outside the space vehicle. And I really like this quote too. It was the thrill of adventure and a desire to explore what's out there. I feel like that's what all astronauts have at their core, is just to go as far as they possibly can to see the unknown. And so here I have pulled a number of a number of state news clippings from across South Carolina news sources, and I will show you guys how I got to that after a couple more slides, because this is my favorite way to research historical figures in South Carolina and in any state really, but of course we focus on South Carolina, is finding news coverage from when their historic event happened, and a little bit before and a little bit after is really good too. It gives you a lot of context. It gives you a great look into the time frame. So like right here, we've got the Apollo 16 mission leaving the moon. Unfortunately, one thing that I don't like is that a lot of newspaper photos are very grainy anyway. And we've got some great digitization folks. Virginia is here and she can attest to that. We've got some great stuff going on. Unfortunately, if you start with a grainy photo, you're going to end with a grainy photo as well. So the visual aspects are not 100%, but they are also very fun to see as well. But I really appreciate the context, and so this is from April 24th, 1972, and we've got news about Vietnam, and we've got news about Apollo 16 right next to each other, and so you can get a bigger context into what they were doing. And you can also see more of the general vibe, the general consensus of and voice of the community during that time period, because that changes a lot. And so this one is from the South Carolina Record, the Columbia Record, I'm sorry, and this talks about how Charles Duke was chosen to be in the Apollo program. And so Apollo 11, which was launched in 1969, I believe we are almost exactly to the day. I believe that was July 20th. They lifted off. He was the communication lead with the capsule. So even though he wasn't actually in the Apollo 11 spaceship, he was in close touch with them, which I think is really exciting as well. So we see that when he joins it. And then here we see the Apollo 16 mission, which he did participate in and get to do some spacewalk things and stuff like that. And then over here I thought was fun, well, relatively speaking. This was for another mission later on. This tracks the case of German measles that one of the Apollo astronauts had, and unfortunately, hang on. Okay, so this is for Apollo 13. So this is a little bit before Apollo 16, but this is a case of German measles that basically wiped out the crew of Apollo 13. And by wipe out, I meant they just had to stay on Earth, and they had to kind of start over with who they would get for Apollo 13. So I thought that was a fun little detail. You can prepare all you want, but some things just trip you up and you have to start over again, even with NASA. So that was three of the news articles about Charles Moss Duke Jr. And he is one of the folks, like I said, he is the first person in space from South Carolina. But of course, if you think about South Carolinians in space, you more than likely think about Ronald McNair. He is our most famous. He was born and raised in Lake City, South Carolina, and he was valedictorian of Carver High School in 1967. So he received a PhD in physics at MIT, and then he became nationally recognized for his work on electro-optic laser modulation for satellite space communications. I am not an engineer. However, I believe that means he uh, he moderated lasers so that they could use the space satellites for better communications. He made something sharper. He focused something. Again, not an engineer. Just he was really good with lasers, and he won a lot of nationally recognized awards and things like that for it. So he was very smart and very built into the communication space for satellites. And he became one of the first three black astronauts, like in the entire country, when he was accepted into the astronaut class of 1978. And he was the second black American to go into space during his first journey in 1984. So Ronald McNair is rightly celebrated as a very brilliant mind and a very focused and celebrated South Carolinian who was able to go into space several times. And unfortunately, you probably know this, if you know who he did perish as a member of the Challenger crew in 1986. That was a devastating tragedy, and so I think he would have done a lot more if he was able to, but he did a lot before he perished in the name of exploration. So we do honor Ronald McNair and all of his contributions, very much so. And so we do have a number of pieces of material on him. This is his portrait from NASA, and we have a South Carolina Hall of Fame TV episode. We've got that on video cassettes. If anybody has a VHS they would like to use to watch that, we are more than happy to lend that out. We also have a number of books on him. His brother actually wrote In the Spirit of Ronald E. McNair, Astronaut and American Hero. This is a biography by Carl S. McNair, who is Dr. McNair's brother. And we also have a children's biography explaining who he was. And McNair is included in encyclopedias about important people from South Carolina. He is honored in our 1990 South Carolina African American History Calendar. I believe that was one of the first issues they had, if not the first. But we have a lot of the African American history calendars, even though they are technically they're time sensitive. They are great to look through because they honor a lot of South Carolina African Americans who may not have gotten recognition elsewhere, and Dr. McNair was one of the first ones they honored. And let's see. Okay, so with Dr. McNair, we've got an interesting trajectory of the news. And so Lake City welcomes astronauts. This is from the state, and this is Dr. McNair and his wife. He has just been chosen as an astronaut, and so he's about to go he's about to go do his training, and he's excited, and it's very bittersweet, honestly, to read the stuff before the Challenger happened, because he's so excited, and so is his wife and his family. It's nice to know that he got to do what he loved to do. However, we also have the Challenger accidents. That is, of course, covered in the state. It's covered in a lot of different papers, but I chose the state because we've got him as a South Carolina native honored, and then his remains also were put in the state house, and that was a nice way to honor him. I know he also has a statue in his hometown, and so there's a lot of information and a lot of news about McNair himself and about the Challenger and about the aftermath of that within our papers because he was involved. And so, like I said, it's pretty bittersweet because he was so enthusiastic, but we do honor him with all that we can, and we're very excited that we are able to preserve his memory here at the State Library. Excuse me. So, other folks who have been from South Carolina and gone to space. Katie Coleman, Catherine Coleman is her full name. She was born in Charleston, and she went into the Air Force in 1983, and she was chosen to join NASA in 1992. So she logged over 4,330 hours in the Space Shuttle Columbia and the International Space Station. So we've got her memoir autobiography called Sharing Space, An Astronaut's Guide to Mission, Wonder, and Making Change. And so we're always excited to have women represented as well within traditionally male workforces. She has a lot of information about how she got to where she got and what her life was like and all kinds of interesting things. So that is definitely worth checking out. And then we also have Charles Bolden. He was born in Columbia. He was an Air Force naval pilot. And then he was also chosen to go into NASA, and he flew 4 missions as an astronaut, starting with the Space Shuttle Columbia in 1986. And he was confirmed as the 12th administrator of NASA by former President Barack Obama in 2009. So he just recently stepped down within the past 5 years, I believe. So yeah, Charles Bolden has been representing South Carolina at the top of NASA for a while now, and we're very excited, again, to have information about him as well and to honor him and his contributions as a South Carolinian. And then we also have Frank Culbertson and John Casper are 2 other folks who are in NASA. They contributed to space and air and flight and space information. We have a little bit of material on them, but we do not have a whole lot of standalone information. However, we do have information specifically on South Carolina astronauts and material on that if you would like to view more information about them. And honestly, if you just want to Google these names or research these names, there's a lot of information that I had to condense a lot. Trust me. And Katie Coleman and Charles Bolden, they both have a good deal of material in our stacks and in our collections. And so Frank Culbertson and John Casper, there's a lot of good information out there about them. It's just we don't have specific standalone information. So go research these folks. They're all very fascinating. And like I said, the newspapers are a great way of doing that. And I will show you all how to do that in just a moment. Actually, let's go ahead and do that. We are going to share my screen, and we are going to go to our, let's see, where did we go? Here we go. Oop, there we go. Okay, so I found these newspapers in our electronic database called Newsbank. We do have several other newspaper databases, but I just wanted to highlight the one that I used for this information and for the news that I got for these. We are going to go down here, and to get into Newsbank, you do need a South Carolina State Library card. And I would be remiss if I did not mention that we have a link to our library card application in the chat. We take them electronically and then we mail you a physical card. You can also get an e-card, and the e-card you can use with our electronic information, including our databases. So if you are, say, in Greenville and you want to look through our news databases, you can get an electronic card and then sign in through that. So Newsbank is something you need a card for, but we will get you set up with that very quickly. And this is the home screen, and as you can tell, you can just do a general search, and that will search all of the newspapers that they have within this database, which is interesting. And if you are, it's good for starting a topic. However, if you know that you want to search for somebody within South Carolina newspapers, we have things over here that you can look at that sort of makes it a little bit more targeted, which is what I like to do because starting with just the general collection is very overwhelming. So over here we have several South Carolina specific papers. As you can tell, we've got the Charleston Post and Courier historical and current collection. We also have the Columbia Record Historical Archive, and then we have the State Historical and Current Collection. So I use this general tab called South Carolina, and I'll click on that and show you why. Because I wanted to catch anything within South Carolina. And we have a lot of different, as you can tell, we have a lot of different papers. Some of them are historic, some of them are current, some of them are not even newspapers, they are news channels like TV information that maybe have articles written down in some place. And so I wanted to catch anything from the South Carolina media. And so this is where I entered my keywords. And so what I am doing is putting I'm putting a name in quotation marks because otherwise it will take both of these as separate names and you'll get too many links. You'll get too many results. But Ronald McNair, he is he is famous enough so that we will be able to find something specific about him. And you also need to be careful. So right here you can see is off of Ronald McNair Boulevard. So if you want to find something that is about the person and not like something that is named after them, you can go over here and use the date selector, and you can narrow it down to like 1970 to 1980 or 1987 or 90 or whatever, and that will narrow it down for you. And I did the same thing with our other folks, especially Charles Moss Jr. or Charles Moss Duke Jr. We had a good many newspaper articles about him since he was the one going to space for the first time. All right, so we are going to go back to my presentation. All right, so I encourage you to research all of these folks. Like I said, there's a lot of cool information that I was not able to keep in this presentation because otherwise we'd be here all day. So moving on to actual astronomy and all of that fun stuff. We do have a number of ways to stargaze in South Carolina. There are a few places where you're able to go without light pollution. And so there's light pollution information from state and national parks within the state and national park information that we have. We also have state documents on historic astronomical events like the 2017 eclipse. Like I said, that was very fun. That was a very fun time to be in South Carolina. And as you can see, there is commemoration guides. There's also historic retrospectives and also scientific information about it if you wanted to relive that, or if you weren't in South Carolina or not able to see it, if you want to get information about it. And we also have kid-friendly fiction and nonfiction about astronomy by South Carolina authors. So that's always fun. You can bring the younger children, the younger readers, whoever likes to read something with a little bit more imagination or a little bit more illustration to it. We've got that as well. And then we also have agency publications about the state planetarium. And that's again attached to this state museum. And they are great over there. It's very fun to go visit, and we've got information about them. So that is within our state agency's material. All of these are within our South Carolina collection, which is kind of divided into general South Carolina, which are like these two books. They're not written by a specific South Carolina State Department, or they're not considered state publications. They're just written by South Carolina people about South Carolina, or sometimes people from elsewhere, but they're about South Carolina. And then this is an example of a state agency publication, which is a publication directly from a state agency. This instance is the State Museum and Planetarium. Thank you. If I could speak today, that would be great. And so we've got that directly from them. And then again, these are also in our juvenile South Carolina collection, because they are not directly from the state agency, but are from folks from South Carolina or about South Carolina. So we also have a general stacks area. It's not as big as our South Carolina section, but we do have a number of sections in it, and we do continue growing those as we get information that we can hold on to and that supports the rest of our collection. So we have a lot about NASA. We have a couple books about the birth of NASA and the history of NASA. Excuse me, I'm sorry. We also have some books about space exploration in general. And I also wanted to highlight that we have a few books about basic concepts in physics. I did not take physics in high school. I was a biology person, and so I went that way. And now I kind of regret that, because I really enjoy learning about space, and so much of that is physics. And so we've got some of these, Neil deGrasse Tyson, of course, and Carl Sagan, sort of the OG guys who brought popular science about the cosmos into the mainstream. So we do have stuff from them, and we have a couple other books from folks that are not quite as famous, but they are along the same lines. So they are very popular reading friendly. So you don't have to be a genius. You don't have to have made an A in AP Physics to understand all this stuff, which is what's so great about it. And we also, like I mentioned, we have Braille and Wonderbook options. And I will show you a couple of those in further detail in the next couple slides. But let's see. I think we can go ahead to that. Oh, no, we're going to do federal documents first. Okay. So we do have, like I said, a number of federal documents from NASA. We have a lot of them within our premise, and we also have a lot linked online in our catalog. And so I will show you guys what our catalog looks like in just a second. And when something says it's an electronic resource, there will be a link to go directly to it within the catalog, which is really nice. And so I can't tell you how many like reports on research, budget, construction, education, just all facets of NASA, just every tiny little detail that are linked online. You can get so granular with that you can just lose days of research. Not saying I did that. I might have, but It's very interesting if you want to get super detailed on what NASA and has historically done, or um, some of the current reports as well. And so we also, of course, have documents from historic events. Those are the ones that we tend to keep. And again, we do have sort of guidelines for our federal documents that mean we don't keep every single thing, but we do have a good number of them. And like I said, even more online through link to our government site in our catalog. And I chose this picture because it was part of a report. It was aimed more towards the school age set, and it was called Space Thrills, which I thought was very fun. Trying to get them in young for interest in NASA and all things space. Okay, so I'm going to show you guys our catalog real quick. Let me share the other part of my screen, which is right here. Okay. So, library card, meeting, Okay, SC Lens is over here. There we go. Okay. So, this is our SC Lens catalog, and as you can tell, you can choose which library you would like to search. You can search all of SC Lens if you want to, which is great. Again, I can't emphasize enough how much we love being able to share that. We also have all of our counties that we share with listed on here. So if you live near one of these and you're like, oh, I want to search for space information within these guys, you can totally do that. Of course, we here at the State Library use South Carolina State Library the most, just because that will be our presentation and what we can physically get our hands on. So right here, you have the state library that lets you know which library you're searching. And then we have the keyword as our search field, and then we have the search box. So if you want to get more granular, if you know an author or a title that you would like to look at, if you know the ISBN of a specific book to see if we have, please feel free to use all of those. I just wanted to point out that the subject section is very specific. It is a very specific link of phrases that are from the Library of Congress subject headings. So if you know those, that's great. Go nuts. If you don't, the keyword is going to be your best friend. So again, you can put stuff in quotation marks, make sure it comes as a phrase. You can tweak all you want to do to make sure you can get the best stuff going. All right, so we are going to go back to the presentation. All righty, okay. So that is our federal documents and our catalog. We also have physical displays. So if you are able to come into the physical building of the State Library, I would encourage you to. It's a great, interesting historical building. We've been here since 1968, I believe. 68, 69, a long time. So we've got a lot of interesting material that you can look at physically and check out if you have a card. So first I wanted to highlight the General and South Carolina stacks. My department, the Public Services folks, we change out the theme of our display every month, and so do the other folks who put on displays. And so, of course, this month we've got the air and space. So all of these are books that I've talked about, and you're able to check out. And our lovely, my lovely coworker Hannah, she added some cool flair to this month's with some space photos and a little bit of that going on. So we try to keep it visually interesting. And I also wanted to point out here Earth and Touch the Stars. Those are both the from the Inclusive Services area that I was talking about. These are both Braille books. And the Touch the Stars one I think has to be my favorite because it is talking about the constellations, and you can feel through Braille, you can feel the constellations themselves and what they look like in the sky and their positions. And then also, of course, the information is in Braille, so you can just read it if you are able to read Braille, and that's your thing. And then Earth is also really fun. It's a earlier reader-centric book, so if you have a small child or anybody who would like to read that and they know Braille, we've got it. You can check it out. We've also got our state and federal documents area. Those folks change that out every month too, and we appreciate it so much because we've got so many interesting things. And like I said, we've got some NASA stuff up here. We've got some state. These are the Hall of Fame episodes for some of our South Carolina astronauts. It's really fun to come look and see what we can dig up every month. So I encourage you to come check these out, literally and figuratively. Now these are our rare and special collections items. So these are not available for checkout, as you might notice. We've got them under glass and they are very precious, but they're also really cool to look at. Our rare collections librarian is so good at finding these and displaying them. She's excellent at presentation of these without damaging them. And so you are more than welcome to come look. And this year she focused on the Air National Guard information that we have from the State Military Museum and a couple other places. So she usually borrows some interesting stuff from another state agency as well. So like this telescope and this model plane are from other areas that enhance what we have. So come check that out if you can. And I also wanted to note our monthly exhibit. So this is something where we go a little bit more in depth into the subject matter of our monthly theme. And so you can see we've got a number of very well researched and very well presented biographies of folks who have been in the space industry, air and space industries, and I encourage you to come check out the information on all of these folks because I chose the folks I did for this presentation because they are specifically about space, and that is what I was doing my presentation on. We also have a lot of folks in the Air Force, a lot of folks who contributed a lot of good things through that, in the Air National Guard and all of that. So please come in and see all the information that we have. And as you can tell, everybody's biography is packed, just packed solid with really cool stuff and historic information, so come see that if you can. All right, so I am going to pause here and make sure nobody has any questions about the information that I've presented. I wanted to give you guys a minute to digest. I know this is a lot at one time. I really enjoy doing this, and I hope I did not go too quickly. But also there's a lot of information to get through. And so if you have any questions, please let me know, drop it in the chat, raise your hand, do the little raise hand thingy, whatever you wanted to do. So let's see, I'm going to, oh, nope, don't need to reshare. I wanted to check the chat, see if we have anything. All right, so nothing so far. All righty, I'll check that again in a second. So I did want to highlight how you can navigate our material to find more information. So in the material itself, 90% of what I've been talking about has been nonfiction. There might be one or two articles, one or two novels or stories or something about South Carolina and the space, but most of what we have and most of what we are going to collect at the State Library are going to be nonfiction books. And so let's see. Okay, thank you, Ryan. I appreciate it. And so in nonfiction material, there are indexes at the back. That's my favorite way because if you don't know the exact phrase that you're searching for, or maybe the exact name is eluding you, you can page through the index, and the index is just, of course, a list of things that are mentioned in the book, and a lot of them are very thorough, and they cover a lot of I will answer that question in just a moment. Kat, thank you so much for asking that. I do have an answer, so hold on real quick. We'll get there in just a second. So we have indexes. We also have tables of content. Tables of content are less specific, but of course they are useful. They tell you where you're going to go in the book. I like to think of tables of content as where you're going, and then the indexes is where you've been. That's how I think of the difference of those and their different uses. And some books have endnotes, which that is where you put your list of sources either at the end of each chapter, or a lot of folks just save that to the very end of the book. They'll say, chapter 1, I got sources here, chapter 2, etc., etc. So it doesn't break up the flow of the book. But those are really fun for jumping off places from other research. Those are super fun if you want to go into a giant rabbit hole. And same for works cited. These are kind of connected. The end notes sometimes have comments and expand a little bit within the context so that you see what was going on that the author didn't put in the exact conversation. All right, let's see. Yes, that is great. Ryan, our park rangers do have telescopes, and so I recommend getting in touch. One of the things to recommend is getting in touch with the park rangers directly. They're super helpful. They will tell you a lot about what you need to know. It's great. Okay, so in the material, we've got those, and then in the SC Lens catalog, we already talked about this a little bit, but I just wanted to go into more detail. So the keywords, again, the more specific, the better. If you want to link those, there are ways to do that. And if you put, like I said, quotations around a phrase, that will search for that whole phrase. If you put a word and then the plus sign and then another word, it will search for both of those at the same time, but not necessarily together. There's a whole system of hacking the keyword search. If you want to know more, let us know. We can help you with that for sure. And again, the date ranges I really used a lot for the newspaper search that I did for these folks, because there is very specific historical areas and historical events that we were looking for, and that helps narrow it down. And again, it does filter out maybe later something was named for somebody, and the high school went to a football championship in 2005, and you're getting too many of those. So with the date ranges, you can filter stuff like that out. Subject headings, I did mention that these are super useful if you know them, and if you don't, that's fine. We can also help with those as well, because Library of Congress subject headings are pretty specific, but if you have a source for them or you get the hang of them, they're pretty good to use as well. And then authors, of course, and then I would like to highlight your research librarians. I am one of those. Hello. We have a few other folks down here in the department with me. They're all great. We are all available for specific research appointments. If you have something that you would like to ask us about, if you're not quite sure where to get started or what material you need, please let us know. We're happy to help. That is our job, and we love it. So I will give you contact info in just a second, and then let's see. Okay. All right, come on. Let's go one more. There we go. Okay, so questions, feel free to add in the chat, and then contact information will be on the next slide. So, oops, Kat, I wanted to share something with you. We have kits, and you may or may not be familiar with those. We have a number of different, let's see. kits that we loan out here at the library. Ah, here we go, circulating kits. And these are great for programs like you're talking about. I know we have at least one, probably more space related kits, and like you were saying, the stargazing. Let me check your question again to make sure I know. Let's see, do you have any? Okay, so general question, do resources or organizations? So yes, so for equipment, I would recommend looking into the space kits we have here. They have a lot of not just equipment like a telescope, but information on things. And sorry, Zoom's telling me something. Okay, all right, we don't need to worry about that. All right, so circulating kits, good place to start. Also within South Carolina, we do have a number of astronomy clubs. Let's see. Yeah, so we've got the Midlands Astronomy Club. They're really nice folks. Also, PSA, please don't use the AI overview in Google. They're not fully accurate. But yeah, we have the Midlands Astronomy Club is the main one here. And then Low Country Stargazers is in Charleston. And then the South Carolina State Museum, they are great to partner with as well. Any one of those places would be great to talk to. Depending on what sort of area you are in building up your club or your needs. The State Museum is great for sort of go to them education. Yeah. Oh, great. Excellent. Kat, I will share in the chat the circulating kits link if I, oh, there it is. Yes, the circulating kits are awesome. And they are very helpful for any sort of programming needs, especially if you don't have a huge budget. A lot of places use those, and then you also don't have to store it. You can check it out for, don't quote me, but I believe it's about a week, and then you send them back. And we have two lovely folks who will help you with that and get you started. So yeah, the State Museum is great for if you sort of need a ground up idea and support, and then the different astronomy clubs, Low Country Stargazers and Midlands Astronomy Club are very kind people. They're very nice, they're very enthusiastic, and they might be able to help. So like if you build a program at your library, maybe they can come and give a talk or something like that. They're great at that. And there's also something, let's see, I think it's, yeah, the solar astronomy is also really interesting. Let's see. Okay, so okay, let's see. They may not have a different, okay, I don't think they have a different club for that, but if you are time pressed and like you have to do something in the day, solar astronomy is also really cool. Of course, it's a little bit more dangerous because of the optical stuff, but of course you gotta make sure everybody knows what they're getting into. But the Midlands Astronomy Club also does a lot of solar astronomy, which is really cool. I didn't know that was a thing until I talked with them. Thank you, Virginia. I appreciate that very much. And so that's what I have. I'm going to go share my information real quick, and Virginia knows how to get a hold of me, so she will not miss anything. But yes, if you guys want to get a hold of me, this is my, oops. Oh, okay, well, the sharing is stopped. So I will put my information in here. And very.se.gov. And then also we have our reference, the same type of thing, and then I'm going to put the reference number in here. Let's see, 70. Let's see. So we can get that done. All right. So if you guys want to talk to us, just let us know. We're more than happy to get in touch with you and get you matched up with any sort of material. Thank you so much for coming and for participating. Thank you so much, Kat. We appreciate it. And y'all have a great day and a great weekend. Thanks again.